Welcome to another episode of the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host. And on this episode, I am pumped to have Matt Perrault on the show. He's the co-host of Bostonian versus Book, and he also does the Daily Juice, which we are definitely going to talk about today. Matt, welcome to the show.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me, considering you came on BVB a couple of weeks ago and you were a gigantic hit with our audience. So I'm psyched to return the favor and be here and talk football. So thanks for the intro. Thanks for the invitation to come on.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait to talk to you about, honestly, like unprecedented week of football. And I'm pumped to have you on.
5 days. It's a Thursday through Monday of playoff football every single day. It's unlike, we've never had anything like it. If you're a gambler or just a football fan, this is really fun.
I mean, it's amazing, right? It starts on Thursday, and we're just going to go straight through, and I can't wait. The Football Analytics Show is brought to you by the Power Ranks Sports Betting Newsletter. Looking for some action on any given weekend? This is the free service for you, as 5 Nugget Saturday is my curated list of tips and analytics. I haven't yet, but I will be including stuff from Matt Perrault. To sign up for free, go to thepowerrank.com. That is my site for better sports betting information through data and analytics. That's thepowerrank.com. Matt, I would love to know more about your story. How did you get involved in sports betting? And then a little bit more about Bostonian versus the Book and the Daily Juice.
Sure. So I'm 47. I went to UMass, graduated in 1999. But my gambling really came from my grandfather, who ran numbers in Lawrence, Massachusetts, out of the back of his bar. Took me to a place called Rockingham Park, which was a horse track outside of New Hampshire, which I had a chance to kind of go and cut my teeth, if you will, and have a chance to check out kind of the degenerates back in the day. I was 12 years old, made the first bet. It lost, of course. And then really from there, I got a chance to see how the sports gambling world on the underground side of things went. I became involved in betting, as a lot of college kids do. I made bets in college, and then wasn't good at it at all. But I was a broadcaster and someone who wanted to talk about gambling. And so when I got my first talk radio job in Alabama, gambling down there was so prevalent. It was underground, but it was so prevalent. The offshore business came calling, and I was doing a ton of content on my show, on my morning show in Huntsville, for Alabama football and SEC football with offshores, and just kind of started down that road of doing gambling content, thinking one day this might actually turn into something. And lo and behold, my radio career took me to Vegas in December of 2015. And then after a couple of years of being in Vegas, I decided to go into full-time content creation for sports betting about 6 months before PASPA was repealed. And I just hit the wave. I was lucky. And for 6 years now, I've been doing full-time sports gambling content and being able to talk about it openly and learning a ton. I think for a gambling, I think I'm like most gamblers. I thought I knew a lot until I got to Vegas and met people who really know a lot. And the number side of things, the analytical side of things really became, my playground to learn and to educate myself about different things that the number represents. I think a lot of people look at gambling and look at sports betting and they see the number and they think that the number is indicative of what the books think is going to happen. And then learning that that's not the case and learning about how the numbers move and why the numbers move and what professionals are looking to key on and play off of has really been an awesome thing for me as a handicapper and as a sports fan to really kind of see the evolution of not just the public, but myself in terms of how the sports gambling marketplace has gone. So in July of 2020, right in the dead middle of the pandemic, betting pros came to me and said, we want to start a daily 365 a day podcast. And we think that you could be the guy that could do it. They wanted to combine entertainment with also sports betting and trying to keep people's attention. Doing a podcast every single day, you can't just do picks. You got to have some fun with it. So I started that, and that's been an incredible ride for 4 years to produce content every single day, Christmas, New Year's, sick, not sick, in the hospital, not in the hospital. I've done the show from all sorts of wacko places to get the content out and to get like a 10 to 15 minute pick podcast out that fits perfectly into the ADD generation of 25 to 54-year-olds that have only 10 minutes of a drive to a coffee shop and just want to know, all right, what's Matt playing? To either fade or follow. Plenty of people listen to the podcast to fade the picks as much as it is to follow the picks. And I'm fine with that. I've told them before, as long as you're listening or watching, I don't care as long as you're, paying attention to what the content I'm producing. So that's been awesome. And then Dave Sherapan, who's my co-host on BVB, walked into my studio at the Palms Casino in Las Vegas and said, I'm Dave. I want to do content. And I said, great. I'm Matt. I do content, and thought nothing of it. And then he took over. I was doing a show with CG Technology at the time at the Palms, and the guy that was on the show left, and Dave stepped in. And the segment became the most popular thing that I did. And we went from 1 day a week up to 3 days a week, and decided to kind of shop around this idea of a gambler from Boston with a 20-year book guy. And we called it BVB, or Bostonian versus the book. And that started in December of 21. And now we've just passed 700 shows. We've done the show from 3 Super Bowls. We've done the show from the Breeders' Cup, shows in Chicago and Reno, and we're looking to grow and take the show even more on the road in 25. So it's been really fun to do a show and do shows where I think that we talk about the gambling world from an honest perspective. We don't sugarcoat. We don't push parlays. We don't push negative EV plays. We're not the show for the square person or even the square book, because we'll tell you what's wrong and what's right, and we'll tell you what we think. And there's a lot of things that are right with sports betting, but there's plenty of things that are not right with sports betting. So
yeah, for sure.
That's kind of where I am today.
Matt, take me through this past winter vacation. I was looking at Daily Juice and every single day, and honestly, it kind of makes sense during the holiday period. Like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of football. There's basketball going on. There's hockey. Like, on a daily basis, and I certainly know what it takes to. I know what it's like to produce that, like a 10-minute show, and it's a lot of work. So just take me through a quick day and how that goes, especially during when everyone else is on vacation.
Yeah, my significant other doesn't really love it, but she kind of deals with it. So I'm doing the podcast from the Hyatt House Hotel on the wharf of DC. So we're there to take my daughter and her son to go see DC, and it's a dead time in DC. So it's a good time to go see all the Smithsonian's, and we couldn't see the White House, but the Capitol building and everything else. But I have to tape. So I'm trying to find a moment in the day where I can get back to taping, and trying to find enough time to do handicapping. I normally do about an hour to an hour and a half of handicapping before I do the podcast to get the picks and plays that I want to make, and then go and record and edit and post. So the whole thing takes me, 3 to 4 hours throughout a whole day. So I'm finding we're in the back of Ubers, and I'm opening up my applications, and I'm searching different trends and picks and thoughts and plays, and texting people about picks and plays. And I'll get the side eye for, once in a while of what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm here. Don't worry. So that could be tricky. I'm not going to lie that could definitely be somewhat of a unique thing when you're around me, to realize that content in sports betting, even on the radio, it was like this too. You're never really off. You may have an off trip or a vacation or whatever, but you're never really away from it, because you can't be. You have to be constantly watching Twitter, X. You got to be constantly following up on injuries and weather reports, and you just have to keep yourself abreast of what's happening. And if you disconnect for too long, it takes a long time to get back on track. So for me, I'm just used to it. People around me, they're like, again, really, again? Yes, this has to happen for right now. So we work in a very unique thing. I'm not complaining. I love my job, but it does put stresses on different parts of your relationships and of your life, where people aren't part of this crazy world we call sports gambling.
Do you ever find a time to give yourself a break during football season, given the daily schedule, like half a day?
So this is a constant fight with people around me who tell me I have to, and they're always like, you need to to disconnect. You need to unplug. You need to get away. And the answer during football is no, because I say, look, you know what this is. It's 6 months on and 6 months off. My 6 months on is every single day. It's nights, it's mornings, it's appearances, it's podcasts like this. It's constant. Then we get to April and there's nothing. And you have my undivided attention for April, May, June, July, and August. And I really don't do anything like that. And I am way more available, and I have way more time to decompress and disconnect. So it's sort of like that idea, like you'll sleep when you're dead. It's like I'll sleep in the spring. Like I'll get
Right.
that all done when it's baseball season, and I don't want to bet baseball, and I have to bet baseball. All right, well that's when I'll get my rest in. So during football season, not really. I mean, it's a 24/7 grind until we get to this year will be New Orleans. Once we get to the Super Bowl, then then we'll decompress.
But during baseball season, I mean, you're still doing the daily juice every day, right? So
correct. Yeah.
Still put in that 3 hours.
No, it's a different level handicap. It's a different type of interest. It's a different level of content production when it comes to those, because baseball is such a grind. And so, yes, trying to find picks and plays takes the same amount of time. It's just the overall brain and energy that it takes. Baseball games now are about 2.5 hours. I'm not going to lie. I don't watch in the summer and the spring. It's probably why baseball has been so bad for me, that I don't sit and watch every baseball game I bet.
Sure.
I watch it on my phone, and I'll keep track of it as to what it's doing, but I'm not hanging on every pitch where, given a game on, Thursday we're taping this on Wednesdays, tomorrow's Penn State, Notre Dame. I'm not going to miss a snap. I'm going to be glued to that game, watching every second of it because I can't wait to watch it.
Absolutely. Matt, is there a football bet for this upcoming weekend that you'd be willing to share with us?
Sure. I mean, we'll talk about every game if you want. I've already bet Notre Dame. I don't trust James Franklin in big moments. I can't trust him to not make a boneheaded decision or play late in the game. I think the Irish win the game by 3. We saw the number go as high as 2.5. It never got to 3. The professionals wanted it at 3 for Penn State, and they've since brought it back down to basically -1 for the Irish. But James Franklin's record as a dog is so bad. His record in big games is so atrocious. I mean, 7-25 straight up as a dog, and technically he may go off as a favorite, so that stat might not matter. It's just in big games, I cannot trust him to not have a problem with either clock management or timeouts or something that comes up and you're like, oh, there's James Franklin again in big games, not being able to get it done. And the retort to that, obviously, is what has Marcus Freeman done? And why aren't you concerned about Notre Dame? I'm not concerned about the Irish because of their defense. I just think their defense all year has been such a consistent part of their winning strategy. And Marcus Freeman's been able to run the ball and play defense much in the same way that Penn State does. So I do like the under in this game a lot as well. But I just think the Irish, at the end of the day, I expect Notre Dame to make 1 or 2 more plays to win the game.
I've had a lot of respect for Notre Dame's defense this year, especially not having Benjamin Morrison in NFL corner for half the season. They didn't have Riley Mills in the Georgia game, another huge contributor. Now they might not have the cross, the defensive tackle. Any concern for you with those injuries, or do you just kind of trust Marcus Freeman on that side of the ball?
No, I think everyone's banged up at this time of the year. I mean, look, Carter may not play, or at least he's questionable for Penn State. I mean, if Carter's not,
oh my God, that guy's going to play.
He's going to play.
There's no way he's missing.
How effective will he be? I mean, I expect him to play. He's a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, but he is nursing an injury. Everyone's banged up in some form or fashion at this point in the year from a college football perspective. So I'm not worried about it because I do think there's enough time to make game plan adjustments to be able to take care of this. And frankly, I'm not scared of the Penn State offense. They're going to try to run the football. They got 2 very good running backs. I expect Notre Dame to be able to stuff the run and make this about Drew Aller. Drew Aller is going back to college because he knows he's not an NFL-ready quarterback yet. And this is going to be a huge pressure-packed game for him, where I expect the Irish pass rush to really put a lot of pressure on the offensive line for Penn State. And if they can't hold up, and we saw it with the Irish and what they've done against Indiana and other teams, their offensive line didn't hold up, and Notre Dame ate. I think the same thing could happen here to Penn State, where you're going to pressure Drew Aller, and he makes mistakes. He will pull the football down, and his eyes come down to the pass rush really fast. And I think if the Irish can get him uncomfortable, that's how the game gets away from Penn State, if the Penn State offense can't throw the football.
I agree. I mean, I thought Aller had a couple plays against Boise State in which he couldn't make a quick decision. And exactly, he's looking at the rush. And that's Boise State. It is maybe 2 levels up to Notre Dame's defense. And I think that's definitely a key as well. Matt, how about any thoughts about the other semifinal? We got Ohio State versus Texas.
Yeah, so I jumped on Ohio State to win the national championship at +110.
Nice.
Because I was really concerned about this number. So it being 6 and now bet down to 5.5, I think the number is perfect. So I think if you put a gun to my head, I would take Texas plus the points. I think Texas's defense, and you know this from a numbers perspective, like it's really good. I mean, Texas defense is really, really good. And I know Ohio State's been boat racing everybody. The public, I think they're getting tricked a little bit here with their eyes watching Ohio State and what they've done, and they're thinking that Ohio State's going to do the same thing to Texas. The way that happens, if Quinn Ewers is throwing picks or just can't make the quick decision and can't find receivers open down the field, then I think this game could get away from Texas and it could be a blowout. I can't see Texas winning, though. Ohio State wins this game. It's just a matter of what's the point spread that they're going to win it by. And I think I don't know, it feels like a 4 to 5 point win type of thing for for Ohio State rather. And Texas may be having a shot late in a low scoring game. I think everyone thinks it's Ohio State lay the points in the over. I think it may be dog and under if you're going to bet it, but that's why I knew I was going to be conflicted. So I was like, look, I'll take plus 110. I think it's minus 120 now on Ohio State to win the national championship. I just took the plus right away and said, okay, I know they're going to beat Texas. I don't want to worry about how much.
For sure. So this was after the semifinal. I mean, I feel like Ohio State looks very dominant at this point. Look at what they did in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, as a Michigan guy here in Ann Arbor, like I cannot deny what Ohio State's doing right now. And
it's been so chalky. I mean, this tournament's been so chalky, and Ryan Day is playing with house money in a lot of ways here on this because everyone expects him to lose the opener. They're like, oh, you're going to fall on your face. This team quit on you. And then they come out and they win a huge game at home. And then they go and do what they did to Oregon. I mean, 34-0. I mean, it's like you step back and go, wait a second. Holy crap. Like that was a good Oregon team that they just destroyed.
Yep.
And now I just think that they're, Trista Crick, who does incredible jobs covering basketball and football, had the great analogy saying that they're a badger in a box. They're just ripping anyone's eyes out. Like they want to kill anyone and everyone because of all the negativity that was around the program after the loss to Michigan. And that, from a Texas standpoint, I think it's just like, like it's bad. I mean, the look ahead numbers for Ohio State against either Notre Dame or Penn State is over a touchdown. Like the books expect Ohio State.
A lot.
Yeah. 8 and 8.5. From a national championship game perspective. So like the books expect Ohio State to win this game against Texas, and the books expect them to win the national championship.
Yeah, we will see what happens. Matt, let's move on to the NFL. One game I wanted to ask you about in particular is Washington going to Tampa Bay. We obviously have a great rookie performance in Jaden Daniels. Been up and down, but overall his rookie has been fantastic. And then Baker Mayfield, who has had a really great season down there in Tampa Bay. They were able to finish up and win the division. Washington and Daniels are on the road. What's your analysis of this game?
All right. So the books are praying for one of these dogs to win outright because the public is going to be hammering moneyline parlays all weekend long. Because much like we've talked about chalk with the college football playoffs, this may be very chalky for the whole weekend in terms of teams winning and advancing. The one team that very well might help out the books are the Washington Commanders. The problem is there's a long-standing theory that you never back a rookie quarterback on the road in the playoffs, ever. Is Jaden Daniels a rookie? Well, yes. Has he played like one? No. But the Commanders are 3-4-1 against the number on the road this year. They're 7-2 at home. The miracle Hail Mary happened at home. They're a home team where the home cooking has helped Jaden Daniels. When they go on the road, things have been a little bit different for them. Yes, they've killed teams like Arizona on the road, and yes, they've beaten the Giants on the road, but they also lost to Philadelphia by 8. I'm watching closely to see if this number comes back down below 3. Let me get to 2.5 here, but dog play, taking the plus on Washington to beat Tampa. Baker Mayfield as a dog is an absolute ATM machine. Baker Mayfield as a favorite is a whole different conversation in a different world. And they didn't look great last week. I know it was a weird game against New Orleans, and they had to get Mike Evans the numbers, and they got him the record and everything else. They won the game when they finally woke up. But that defense for Tampa is really concerning. They give up big plays. I love McLaurin. I think he's been such a great weapon for this offense this year. They've run the ball really effectively, and Jaden Daniels with his legs can really hurt you. I think Washington beats Tampa. I think the rookie magic continues. I know Tampa beat the Eagles last year, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, how'd that happen? I think the same reaction happens here, that Tampa's the one that loses the game they're not supposed to.
Well, last year we had this narrative, which I believe is true, in that Philadelphia just wasn't the same team towards the end of the season. I wasn't particularly surprised that Tampa won, and then they lost at Detroit because that's what they were supposed to do. That was what was supposed to happen. Do you feel like there's anything else going on here in terms of maybe there's something wrong with Tampa Bay, or it's just Baker Mayfield is Baker Mayfield, and he's going to throw a pick here and there, and that might just help Washington get over the hump here?
I think it's the defense for Tampa more than anything. They give up over 22 points per game. Like I just don't think this defense is any good for Tampa.
Sure.
So I think come a playoff situation, I think Washington, who runs the ball at 5 yards a clip, which is a top 5 rush offense in teams that can run the football in the playoffs, I tend to want to back. And Washington, either with the quarterback or running backs, can run the football. And so if they can play keep away and they don't give up the big play to Tampa, you don't let Mike Evans get loose, and then you don't turn the ball over. You don't have Jaden Daniels have the big mistake, which is possible. Look, Tampa scores a ton of points every game. I mean, nearly 30 points a game. Their offense can put up points on anybody, but the Commanders' defense is not great, but it's serviceable, right? It's good enough to keep you in a game. If it's a low-scoring game, they're not going to get destroyed and give up 30 points to Tampa if their offense is playing well. So I just think this game will come down to, like most playoff games, turnovers and who makes the big mistake. And I just lean towards Tampa making the big mistake or Tampa's defense giving up a big play.
I agree with that. Baker Mayfield is by my metrics one of the most reckless in terms of putting the football in dangerous situations. I really liked him to lead the NFL in interceptions this year, which he tied with Kirk Cousins. And of any bet that I've made this year, I wanted that one to win the most, and so I was pretty pumped about that.
Your numbers when it comes to the playoffs, does the regular season recklessness, does it translate at all, or does it change due to the type of situation we're in with the playoffs?
It's always hard to tell just because of the small sample size of the playoffs. I kind of trust it. It's still football. These guys have natural tendencies that you just can't get rid of in the playoffs. And Baker Mayfield's going to tend to put the football in more dangerous situations, and Jared Goff is not. And it was interesting. So last year when I was doing these interception props, like the regular season was all overs. And it was amazing because usually for an NFL quarterback who's about NFL average, throws an average number of pass attempts, it should be about 50-50 whether he throws a pick. And the early part of the season, you were just getting like plus 150 guys like Justin Herbert to go over half an interception or to throw a pick. And it was great. It was just awesome. And then weirdly, that all changed in the playoff. And the markets kind of were like, oh, well, Jared Goff's going to throw a pick because it's the playoffs. And my number said no. And all of a sudden, the playoffs, it was all under.
Huh.
I have no idea if that's going to be the case this year, but we shall see. And just for the record, Jaden Daniels has a small sample size, but a pretty incredible rate of not putting the football in dangerous situations. Better than NFL average. Weirdly, not as good as Caleb Williams, who that streak of
ended on the Hail Mary, that jump
exactly. Like that streak of not throwing picks, like there was like he's actually pretty good at not putting the football in dangerous situations. So, but yeah, numbers completely agree that turnovers, it's more likely to impact Tampa Bay. I will also say that like Tampa Bay surprisingly has been the best at moving the football, throwing the football on a play-by-play basis. So they're actually best in the NFL in my adjusted passing success rate, which is the metric that I rely on most. So Baker's been good. And like he hasn't had Godwin for half the season. He missed Evans for a while. Like he's doing it with guys like tight end Cade Otton.
Yeah.
It's been remarkable. So
yeah, they've run the ball well in the second half of the year. They've found a running game, which has really helped.
Yep, absolutely. Matt, which of the NFL wildcard games interests you the most from a betting perspective?
I think from a betting perspective, it would be Philadelphia hosting Green Bay. I think if you're asking for like what my favorite play is I think the Eagles are going to go. I think the Packers just are done. It stinks because I think when they are healthy, I think the Packers are a really formidable opponent. But I just think having to go to Philadelphia, taking on that Eagles offensive line, taking on Saquon Barkley, who is going to be rested, taking on Jalen Hurts, who's tired of hearing all the narrative about how they're going to choke and what happened last year against Tampa. I just think this is a really tough ask for the Packers to go in there. And I think anything short of a touchdown, I mean, I could see the Eagles win this game easily and blowing them out. Jordan Love's not healthy. Watson just blew his knee out. I think in terms of all the games, I would be the most surprised if the favorite doesn't cover. It would be Philadelphia up against Green Bay. And then I'm really curious about the Chargers in Houston because I think the Chargers have a chance to beat the Chiefs. And I think in terms of big upsets, the Chargers can beat KC in KC, but they've got to get past Houston first. And I'm concerned about, I don't think they're overlooking the Texans, but the Texans could just be that team that figures it out in the playoffs. And they look so bad down the stretch. And Pittsburgh is in the same boat where they've looked so horrific that all of a sudden the playoffs start and they've got something and they figured it out at practice, or the team locks in and they stop having the mental mistakes that they have had. The offensive line for the Texans is a huge problem. And if the Chargers can get pressure, game over. It's done because I think J.K. Dobbins and company will run the football and play defense. I think that game is a dead under. Like the Chargers to win. I think the number is right. I think it's about a 3-point win for LA. But that game is really interesting because I want to see them get through that without having any major injuries. Like, keep Dobbins healthy. You got to be able to run the ball. And then let's see what happens when they play the Chiefs. Because I think the Broncos and the Chargers both put a big scare at Arrowhead in the Chiefs, and having a second crack at it might just be what Harbaugh needs.
Absolutely. I just don't know what's going on with Houston and the offense.
Yeah.
So much promise after last year. The numbers just look terrible this year. And really the defense has been the unit that's, keeping them in the playoffs. Well, and a crap division. But when we move past this game, is there something specific about the Chargers beating the Chiefs, or do you just see the Chiefs as vulnerable?
Well, one, I think they're vulnerable. But two, I think defense and running the football. I think if you can go on the road and run the ball, and you can play ball control and use the offensive line and use Herbert, not asking him to do a ton, get Ladd McConkey in the flat to pick up first downs. I like the way they match up. They're not going to look for the big play. They're not having Herbert do 7-step drops and allowing Chris Jones to get after them and eat. Running the football and playing defense is what Harbaugh likes to do. It's why they were in the game in the first matchup. It's why the Broncos should have won if they didn't get the blocked kick at the end of the game. That's why the Broncos should have won at Arrowhead. Like, the Chiefs are vulnerable to teams that play the way that Denver and the Chargers play. That's why they hired the coaches that they hired, and that's why they are doing this. That's why they're able to stay competitive in these games and losing by a single score where one play here or there. Look, it's Patrick Mahomes. You're going to take out Patrick Mahomes. You can't just expect him to play poorly. But Mahomes hasn't been all worldly. The numbers, everyone's saying they're getting healthy. They have Hollywood Brown back. All that might be fine and good. Travis Kelce's older and has not had anywhere near the year that he has had. The running game for the Chiefs is inconsistent at best. Yeah. Their defense is why they've been able to win all these games by one score. So in a one-score game, give me Harbaugh with a coin flip's chance to knock out KC.
Matt Perrault, thank you so much for your time today. Please let everyone know where they can find all your good work.
Absolutely. So Bostonian versus the Book is the long form show that we do Monday through Friday. It begins around 11:30 Pacific time, 2:30 Eastern on our YouTube channel at Boston versus the Book. The Daily Juice podcast is wherever you guys get your audio podcasts from Betting Pros video and audio. That's 365 days a year. That's the short form. That's a 15-minute daily podcast that hits with just picks and picks, plays, and thoughts. You can get that wherever you guys get your podcasts.
How long does BVV go every day?
2 hours.
Wow.
It's a 2-hour show, hour and 40 minimum, 2 hours plus, depending on how long Dave and I are going to rant. We don't take commercial breaks. It's 2 hours straight. You can jump in and out. You can listen to it. We have audio versions of it. It gets replayed on SiriusXM and on Sports Grid TV late night. You can catch the show on there as well. So that's the long form. So there's two different, I like it because it's a nice mix. You have a quickie little 10-minute thing, and then you got a 2-hour long form as well.
Matt, you are a content machine. Before we let you go, social media, where can people find you?
At Sports Talk Matt on every platform to go find me there. So that's the best way to find me on Instagram, X, Twitter, all the good stuff.
Matt, thanks again for your time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
This is Ed Fang. You've been listening to the Football Analytics Show. Just a reminder, you can get my free sports betting newsletter. 5 Nugget Saturday is my guarantee. If you want something to bet on, that I will give you something sharp to bet on. Check it out at thepowerrank.com. Such a great month for football. I will talk to you again next week.